Well, the Brooklyn Nets still exist. Surprise, surprise. After a full summer of Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant trade rumors, one of the weirdest off seasons I guarantee you will ever experience, the team remains intact for the foreseeable future. Kevin Durant rescinded his trade request. If you remember, Kyrie Irving never actually requested a trade. They were just going to trade him, and then he got extended, and it was just a whole thing, right? So anyways, the gang is all here after being swept by the Boston Celtics in the first round of last year's playoffs. Of course, they were missing a key piece that they could have desperately used. I'm not sure he would have actually swung the series in their favor, but yeah, obviously a defensive player of the year candidate would not have hurt. It is Sir Ben Simmons. Now, I am a bit curious. Once again, I remarked yesterday how this was the just quickest offseason I've ever been through. Low key, I forgot Ben Simmons did have an operation, and as I'm looking at Basketball Reference, it's saying there is and has been no timetable announced for his return. So at least a question is in the back of your mind. He is starting the season with them, right? Because if we have to start another year where it's like, oh, is Ben Simmons actually going to play? When is Ben Simmons going to play? That's already headed in the wrong direction. But okay, let's just work with the information we have. Last I heard was that he should be ready. So if Ben Simmons is ready to play, what does that mean for this Brooklyn Nets team? Well, once again, last time we saw him, he was at worst a contender for being the best defender in the NBA. This is a guy that can more or less actually guard all 5 positions. That's not just a mantra. He can actually do it. You can stick him on a guard. You can stick him on a big man in the post. His defensive versatility, how hectic he makes things, active hands, playing in lanes. Ben Simmons can be really disruptive. Will he be, though? He has not played a basketball game since relatively early / mid 2021. We are in late 2022. I would bargain to say it's at least going to be a bit of time before he's back into that level of defense, if he ever gets back to that level again. Then there's a question we always have with Ben Simmons. Has he or will he have improved in anything? Because we already know in terms of his driving, that's good. The driving and finishing is at a fairly high level. So is the defense. I hate doing this with him and Giannis, the whole what about the jump shot thing. Even though Giannis, by the way, his jump shot has improved, despite what Ball Don't Stop and others might have told you. His mid-range, it went places last year. The three-pointer might not have, but anyways, this is not a Giannis video. We have a Bucks preview coming up. I have no reason to expect Ben Simmons will be shooting this year. Just kind of, I know he's young, but it just kind of feels like a question we'll always have with him. Either way, one of the reasons a lot of us were excited to see him on Brooklyn was because of the positions that could put him in. He will likely not just be playing as a point guard, which you remember how weird that was with him and Joel Embiid. It was flipped because Embiid was the one that could shoot and Simmons was the one with the traditional old school big man offensive skill set. We won't have to do that in Brooklyn. They have guards. They have Kyrie Irving. Likely not going to be bringing the ball up the floor and initiating the offense all the time. That's why I'm excited, because they're going to be able to actually use him as forward / big man, which will especially be cool on defense because it's going to give them a lot of switchability. If guys put them in PNR, which Kyrie is obviously, and really just the defensive backcourt in general is not great, so it's not likely that you'll want to be asking for that switch, but the ability will be there. Simmons will be able to do his defensive thing down low while also being able to switch out when he needs to. I think that is cool for the Nets. There's just a lot of questions with him. I'm excited. This is going to be the first time we've really seen Simmons used the way he's about to be used on the offensive and defensive end. And I just think it could go places. That is just totally dependent on his health, which is kind of point number 2 with this Nets team in general, man. It's just health in general, just like the Lakers. I promise you I'm not going to bring this up for every team, only the ones that it really makes sense to. And with the Nets, you have to remember Kevin Durant hell, since returning from his Achilles, has missed time each year. So missed the whole year with the Achilles. 35 games in the 2021 season. It was a shortened season, but that's still a low number of games. And 55 games last year. So he's not been Mr. Dependable on the court. We know Kyrie Irving is not Mr. Dependable for one reason or the other, whether it's the fact that he's getting hurt or he's just kind of off on his own journey. Don't know how many games you're going to get as a unit, which is a shame because you remember when we were talking about the Nets this offseason and it was assumed they were going to be trading both of them, they began to make some additions that made sense to the current roster. And so it was weird because they went out and picked up Royce O'Neal, and then TJ Warren plays basketball still, if you didn't know. Yeah, he is a member of the Brooklyn Nets. So last time we saw him was that random weekend. That was the last time we saw TJ Warren, right? Random week in 2020 where he scored like 1,000 points, and yeah, basically he played 4 games in 2021. So he too missed the whole season. Don't know what he's going to be at all. So you had no reference point, but the TJ Warren that we know, not just the bubble TJ Warren, but the TJ Warren in general that we know would be good for this roster in terms of from a scoring standpoint. You go out and get Markieff Morris. These are additions that we were just going, oh, well, if they were going to keep those guys, this is actually pretty cool. Remember the whole Boston series? If you watched my playoff predictions, I had Boston in 6, but I had them winning the series regardless because I didn't think Brooklyn had the roster to pull off. Outside of KD and Kyrie, I just didn't think they had the roster, the depth, basically. The depth, the versatility. I didn't think they had enough of that to match the Celtics, and they didn't. That's why it ended up getting so bad. They ended up getting swept. Once they started putting the pressure on KD, you were missing shooting. Joe Harris was out. You were missing other guys that could put the ball on the floor. It was more or less relegated to how many tough shots Kyrie Irving could hit. And yeah, it just ended up not being a good series. So you're going to get Joe Harris back. You probably forgot he existed. You just forgot a lot of people on this roster existed. They added Seth Curry through trade last year. It was an underrated part. He's going to get a full season with them now. That was very solid. Royce O'Neal, if you're not familiar, he was essentially the Utah Jazz's best defensive option. Now, that's not to say they've got a lockdown defender or anything, but the whole conversation surrounding Royce O'Neal in Utah was that, well, it's cool. He tries on defense, and it's nice effort, but you don't want him to be the best defender on a team. You don't want your entire perimeter defensive structure depending on Royce O'Neal, which it presumably does not in Brooklyn. He is still probably, I'm going to say, one of the better defenders on this roster, but again, that is going to hinge on how much Ben Simmons gives you in that regard. Hell, how much development are we going to get out of Kessler Edwards? I was actually a fan of what he could bring to this roster last year. Same with Cam Thomas from a scoring standpoint. Is he going to get more looks? Those are all questions. This is all kind of in the health point, but I'm mixing it in with the supporting cast stuff. Yeah, the additions are decent. The additions were decent for the Brooklyn Nets. I don't think if they were to, I don't think you would see a repeat of what you saw in round 1 because of it. But also that just totally depends how many games the unit gets together, because although nobody wanted to see them, no contender wanted to see them as a first round matchup, a run through the East did seem pretty impossible, just because how can you have guys play so little together and go so far? That just normally doesn't work out, and it didn't. Yeah, retain Patty Mills. Hopefully Nick Claxton is better at free throws, I guess. Yeah, the Nets rosters, it's good, man. It's better than last year, in my opinion. But what's the morale like? You remember we were talking about this team during the podcast this summer, and back when it still looked like as if KD could get traded, I asked, who did I ask about this? I don't know. I had a couple of guests this summer. Anyways, question I had was, if Kyrie and KD do stay, what does it end up being like for the new guys that are there? What does it end up being like for just that team as a whole, with all the problems they've had between it just kind of being out in the open about how they feel with Steve Nash, and knowing that the two best guys had pretty much both feet outside of the door this summer. I know they're back, but you just kind of wonder that the best player on the team and one of the best players in the NBA did not want to be there. He didn't want to play with y'all. He did not want to play that. It's a job at the end of the day. I don't think these guys always take things so personally. Sometimes they do. Hell, you saw the whole Memphis and Iguodala series, right? Or saga. That's a big question I have with this squad. What is the morale like? How invested are they in this team's success? Because it starts at the top. Kyrie and KD are your leaders. I can basically just leave it right there. Kyrie and KD are your leaders. It sounds, this isn't X's and O's basketball talk. It is kind of just think piece talk, but still though, I think it counts for something. That's kind of all I have for the Nets season preview, honestly, in terms of how they're a team that's much like the Lakers, where there's just so much hinging on what ifs this season that I don't have an actual, and I noticed when I played the Lakers tape back, I didn't really do prediction. I'm not sure that's the point of these, but with the Lakers, it was, just so much hinging on what ifs. With the Nets, it's the same thing. If you get a star level Ben Simmons, that changes everything. If you get his distribution and his defense, a whole lot changes. If this roster, as I just read it, plays a lot of games together, they're probably at worst like well, hell, this Eastern Conference is ultra competitive, but they're contention for top 4 team, which you can say about 4 or 5 of the teams in the Eastern Conference. But if you get KD that plays 50 games, and all of a sudden they're back in the play-in, so it's kind of just all over the place. But out of everything I said, with the health, with the supporting cast, with the morale, I think the most important thing is Ben Simmons. That's the big change to the roster. That's the biggest what if that has potential. I know Ben Simmons is a meme, but I implore you to go watch Ben Simmons defensive highlights though, and then just imagine on this Brooklyn team and just imagine him, even maybe some offensive highlights. Obviously, you're not gonna see any shooting, but he is no longer the number 2 offensive, or supposed to be the number 2 most important offensive player on a team. Whether he ever was or not, that's a whole conversation, but he's not supposed to be on this roster, so that also counts for something, right? When he was on the Sixers, it was Embiid, and you were hoping Ben Simmons would be the next best offensive threat, but then it's like, oh wait, one year you have Jimmy Butler there, then wait, is it Tobias Harris? But you wanted Ben Simmons to be that. On this Nets roster, you don't want him to, and he doesn't have to be, so I definitely think that's important. I'm excited for them though. I'm excited for them. They are as confusing as any team in the league, and I am curious what you think about this squad, so make sure to leave that in the comment section below. Hit the like button, sub, and hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications every time a new video drops. I will see y'all on the next one.